Hello everyone, and in today's video I'm going to be running you through all the effects on the DJM900 NX2, okay? So this is the club standard mixer. Now the reason why I think this video would be interesting to you is because unlike things like Serato and Rekordbox, where your effects are actually on the program itself and you can change the effects up, that's not how it works with this unit. You have a set number of effects and that's it, that's all there are. You can't swap these out with the computer program. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly run you through how the effects work and the effects that you can add to the effects, which I'm going to explain more in a second. And then we're actually just going to go through and I'm going to demonstrate every single effect setting for you so you can see what they all do. Okay, so it's kind of interesting. You know, if you have this mixer, this is going to be a good lesson for you. And if you don't have this mixer, well, it'll be interesting for you because you'll be able to see what essentially a £2,000, which is more like $2,600 club standard mixer and the effects and what they do. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hey guys, so let's get straight into the video. So essentially with this DJM mixer, there's two sections when it comes to effects, okay? There's this section here, which are effects you can select, which basically alter what the filter knob will do. And below them you have a parameter, which is like the dry wet, how much of that effect is added in. This is the one effect section. And then there's another effects section, which is the kind of section we're all we're used to, right? Which is you select an effect and then you point it at whichever lane you want and then you can add in that effect to the lane. So this effect section is over here. Now there's a couple of different parameters and controls when it comes to this. So obviously you've got the select, so you can go and select whichever effect you want. You can only ever affect one at a time in this section here. And then you point it at whatever lane you want that effect to do. So this would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, master, which is all of them, or the mic, so you can do that. Then below here is the dry wet knob, on off knob down here as well, and then you've got the time knob here. Now time refers to how the intervals, okay, so it's like, for example, if you had a delay and you could have it on every bar, well, if I turn it down, it'll happen quicker than the bar or longer than the bar, so it's how often that effect happens, okay? That's time. Now if we jump up here, there's a touchpad which will do different things with different effects. So for example, if I went to delay, I could also select a specific time here. So like an 8, a quarter note, a beat, 2 beats, 4 beats, you see, which again, I could then come and override that with this time section down here, or override it by touching this section up here. You're selecting the time, okay? You can then also override all of it by clicking beat up or beat down, which will, instead of touching these, you just go up or down, so it can go up to 8, 4, 2, you see, like that. You can also tap that time delay in here, so if you knew like a specific time you wanted it, you could just kind of tap along and then that effect will happen to that time. You can click quantize, which will, instead of you tapping along, will set it back to a grid. It basically, there's a lot of settings here for how regularly the effect happens. You don't really use most of them. And then there's obviously mids, lows and highs here, so which is interesting because what you can do is you can put an effect on a lane and then say, well, I only want that effect to happen to the lows. So you might, for example, add a reverb and say, well, I don't want that reverb happening on the low end because it'll affect the lows and the bass of the track. So I'm going to actually remove the lows. So that reverb now will only happen on the mids and highs, which is kind of cool. Don't find myself doing that very often though, if I'm honest. So that's the effects sections here. What I'm going to do in this video now is I'm just going to run you through what all of these effects sound like. I'm going to try and do this quickly so this doesn't turn into a ridiculously long video, and I will briefly discuss what each of these effects are actually doing. Now it's important when I do these effects I'm using just very plain sounds, because if I get a song which has lots of stuff going on, then add an effect, it's not going to be clear and easy to understand what the heck is going on. Whereas if I just get just a straight sound, you can actually hear stuff going on. So what I've got here is just a sine wave that sounds like this. I've got over here a cowbell sound, which would be good for when I want to demonstrate things like delays and stuff. And then over here I've got a saw sound, which is very loud, but we may use it on some of the other effects. Okay, cool. So let's get straight into it. First thing I want to do is do these effects up here, okay? So I'm just going to put the parameter kind of halfway, and I'm going to show you the different stuff. First things first is filter, which we all know. Regular filter that we all know. Okay, the next one I'm going to do is crush. Crush is a bit crusher effect, which essentially down samples the sound. And basically all you need to know is it makes the sound a bit crunchier. Let me play it to you. Which basically does the same thing if you turn it to the right or the left. That sounds really interesting, that, because it's just a sine wave. It creates this kind of like sound like it's kind of stepping down. But if I was to use it on a saw wave, it sounds slightly different. See, it just makes the sound crunchier. The next one is probably my favorite actually, other than filter, which is noise. This is a sound that can happen independent to anything that's playing. It essentially adds in a white noise. If you turn it down, it adds the white noise as well, but it kind of adds a more bassy version of the white noise. You would very rarely turn it in this direction because, again, you don't want lows making your track sound muddy, so you just use the higher one. So this is to the right, this is to the left. Okay, now why this is really cool is because in a lot of dance music, white noise is used to build tension to a track. So as a DJ, you can come in and add a bit more tension, like as it's building and building, and then you can do the whole kind of James Hype type stuff. You can add in rhythms if you use the crossfader or you use the volume thing. So that's a really cool thing. I use that all the time. The next one we'll go to is space. This, I'll just play it to you. In fact, this would be better on the cowbell. So essentially what it is a delay, but with reverb added if you turn it to the left, and it's a bit more low cut if you turn it to the left. If you turn it to the right, it's got a bit of delay and reverb added, but it's a bit more high pass. Okay, next thing, dub echo. This is a really interesting effect. Essentially what it's doing is it's adding a delay, but the time signature of it, like how much that delay is spaced out, is altered the more you turn it, which creates this kind of kind of, you see, like the space is different as I turn it up. Kind of an interesting thing. And then finally you got sweep. Sweep is very similar to the filter-ish. Let me play it to you. I'm going to do with the saw sound. So it's very similar to the filter. It's just a bit more of a crunchy filter is the best way to describe it. So those are those effects over here. Now let's come over to these, okay? So I'm just going to keep it at 50% as well. I'm going to change these different parameters and we'll have a play with them. So the first one I'm going to do is delay. Very straightforward. It just puts a delay on it. Okay, so that's delay for you. Echo is very similar to delay. Let's have a listen. It's similar to delay. Echo and delay are similar. I think echo's got a little bit more reverb naturally added in. Ping pong is a cool one. So ping pong, what you're going to get is the sound kind of pings over to one side, then over to the other, and back and back and back. And just to briefly show you this, if I just have it affecting the lows, you'll just hear the delay just sounds like it's got a low pass on it. Or if I just add the mids in as well. Okay, so that's ping pong. Spiral, let's have a listen. So let me explain what's happening with spiral. Spiral is a delay, but it's also kind of speeding up the distance, speeding up or slowing down the distance between each delay, and also pitching it up or down. Okay, so if I was to kind of turn this up, you'll hear it kind of pitching up and down. You kind of see, it's kind of cool. That's what's going on. Okay, so the next one is reverb. We all know reverb. So, go away. Oh my gosh. So what's happening with reverb? This is interesting. So you've got the dry wet. Now what time is doing is it's kind of the length, as you can hear, of that reverb. Now the interesting thing about this is if you change the length of that reverb while it's happening, you can kind of pitch up and down the reverb sound, which is kind of cool. Potentially could be used in a creative way, building to a drop. Let's just have another quick listen. So, kind of interesting. Cool, let's move on to the next. Trans. I find myself using trans all the time. What it does is it creates a kind of stutter in the sound. It ducks the sound, okay? So I'm going to use this with the sine wave so you can hear it. It's a really nice effect to add into a vocal. So if there's a long bit of singing where it's just holding a note, sometimes I'll hit that quarter note there just to add that kind of vibrato sound to it. That's essentially what it's doing. It creates this duck, which is kind of cool. Cool. Really cool sound. Okay, so the next one is filter. This is essentially putting an LFO on the filter. So it's like somebody turning the filter down and up, down and up. Okay, let's have a quick listen. I'm going to do this on saw because I think we're going to hear it the most with the saw. Okay, so here we go. Put this to 1. Okay, so you see what's going on there? It's like the filter's going up and down, but the interesting thing is, as it kind of sweeps up and down, you can also go in and add like a secondary LFO, which is doing it at smaller intervals. So it's not just sweeping up and down, it's going because there's like micro LFOs going on top of other LFOs. An LFO basically is something that causes an effect to modulate, to do its own thing, to kind of move back and forth. I'll do it one more time so you can hear. Quite a cool effect, that. Really cool, actually. Okay, so the next one is flanger. Flanger essentially kind of almost creates a double of the track and then moves it slightly out from the original. So it's like it takes a track, makes a double of it, moves it slightly out, and it causes the two tracks to sound like they're phasing and they're moving in and out of each other. I'm going to do this with saw again so you can hear. essentially going on is it's just taken that saw wave, made two saw waves, and then moving slightly by a microfraction in and out, and it creates this kind of wavy effect. Okay, the next one, I mean, let's actually just try this time signature and see what happens with that. It's just changing how quickly the two tracks move in and out. Phaser is a very similar thing, but it's slightly more subtle than flanger. So let's have another listen. And I'm going to compare phaser and flanger by going back and forth between the two so you can see how it affects the sound. As you can see, they're very similar sounds, okay? The next one is pitch. This one's pretty obvious. You just turn it up and it changes the pitch. I'm going to do this with a sine wave. Let's try it with the cowbells as well. That might be interesting. What's interesting about this one is that if you turn time up, it will cause it to pitch up. If you turn this time knob down, it will cause it to pitch down, okay? So again, let's try it. I'm going to turn this up and pitch it up and down. You'll see it going up and then the reverse. So that's kind of cool. Okay. So the next two, slip mode and roll mode, these are interesting. In fact, I'm going to keep those to the end, okay? The next one is vinyl break. Vinyl break is where basically, essentially, it slows down the track. Almost like if you picture an old vinyl record playing, when you hit stop, it doesn't stop instantly, it slows down. And the track also pitches down. Ooh, like this, okay? So I'm going to show you. Now, this would be the same on these DJ decks as affecting this vinyl speed here, okay? Just how quickly it stops. So let me just try over here. That's actually really cool. That's actually a big difference. So this is how quickly it slows down. But what's really cool about this is you could put this on a really long time, turn it on, and then bring it in gradually, which will bring the track up gradually from a vinyl break. I've only just discovered that, and it's kind of cool. So that's really cool, that's awesome. Vinyl break, you don't just use it to slow a track down, you can do the reverse. That's kind of cool. And the fact you have control over it is really awesome as well. Helix, let's have a quick listen to Helix. So I'm going to do this on the cowbell. Okay, so basically, as you can hear, what's kind of interesting about this one is it sounds similar to Spiral. It's essentially delaying it and pitching it, okay? And as you play around with different parameters, it causes it to pitch up or more. It sounds like a more extreme version of Spiral to me. In fact, I'm going to actually go back on that. What it seems to be is a regular delay, but you've also got this control here to go to lows or to highs, which pitch it up or pitch it down. That seems to be what's going on here. Interesting effect. Okay, finally we're going to move on to roll mode and slip roll mode. Okay, so this is briefly what it does. You can essentially record a pattern. So what I can do is I can put it over 4 beats, which is a bar, and I can record a pattern for those 4 beats. In fact, let's put it up to 8. So this is over 2 bars. Say I came over here now and I just drummed the pattern with this cowbell, which is this. I could do that, and then I can record that over 2 bars. Think of it like a loop pedal, you know, like looping a sound. So let's try it. Okay, so that's looping. Now obviously I didn't do that to a beat, so it doesn't perfectly go. Like if there was another song over here that was going to a beat, and I did that to the same beat, that probably would have worked perfectly, but at the moment it's a bit disjointed. Now I've still got that pattern playing, which I can obviously come and add any of these effects to if I want to, but here's the really interesting thing. I can actually take this and put it onto a different lane. So if I just turn this now from 2 to 1, it's now playing over on 1 here, which is cool, because now I could potentially affect that sound if I wanted to, and come back to this lane and drum another pattern on top of it if I wanted to. You're going to see what's going on there. You record it and put it on another lane. Finally, there's slip mode, and in all honesty, I don't really know what the difference between the two is. They seemingly do exactly the same thing. I know what slip mode is, but slip roll mode doesn't really work in that same way. They seemingly do the same thing. So if you know what the difference between slip roll mode is and what roll mode is, let me know. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's all the different effects. Hopefully I've kind of demonstrated what they do. I've explained it. You may have learned a thing or two about what all these effects do and how they work. And that's pretty much it. Listen, if you're brand new to DJing and you want to learn more about DJing and stuff like this, and you really want to go dive deep into a DJ decks, you want to go and check out my DJ courses at beginnerdjlessons.com. They'll definitely help you out. Hopefully this has been insightful for you, just listening to these random effects and what they do, and maybe it's given you some ideas about what you can do in your next DJ set. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave it a like, leave it a comment, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video. Ciao!